So it is my honor to introduce our first speaker today, Betty Yee. Betty is a candidate for governor for the state of California. She is widely recognized for her tenure as California State Controller and as a member of the California State Board of Equalization, where she built a reputation for integrity, fiscal responsibility, and principled governance. As controller, Betty put the power of her office to work as an advocate for working people, for our environment, and for our natural resources. Betty was born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrant parents. Her family lived in a one-room apartment behind the family dry cleaning business, where she shared a sofa bed with her four sisters. During the day, Betty went to public schools, and the clothes she wore were made by her mother. Betty's parents did not speak English, so at the mature age of 8 years old, Betty began managing the books at the family dry cleaners, dealing with their suppliers and the banks to make sure things got done. Already getting some experience for her future career when she was our controller. Betty put herself through UC Berkeley and Golden Gate University's master's program while balancing work and school. I have had the opportunity, or the pleasure to have the opportunity, to hear Controller Yee speak at several events in the past. And not only does she have an inspirational story and resume, but she always speaks, or I've found that she always speaks with passion because of how much she cares about our state and our citizens. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure, and please welcome Controller Betty Yee.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, Palos Verdes Democrats, and thank you so much for spending a part of your Sunday afternoon. And look, if I'm coming between you and the Rams game, I'm going to make this pretty efficient, but also want to be sure we have a robust conversation. I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to speak as a candidate for governor. And thank you, Tim, for your leadership, and to Lewis and others in the club. As Tim mentioned, I've had a long public service career, but a lot of it has been really focused on just how do we continue to be an advocate for each other during particularly these fraught times when the state is under attack by this Trump administration, as well as just the economy looking to work against so many of our working families today. I am running for governor because I do believe that my deep fiscal and financial background is unique among the candidates who are running for governor, and using that discipline along with my record of progressive governance to make things add up for Californians again. I started this race a year ago in March, and essentially I run grassroots campaigns. And the reason I do that is because I believe that just understanding who and what I'm going to be representing throughout the state of California really matters in terms of how we develop the right policies that are going to deliver the broadest public benefits. I have been in different parts of the state, in the North State, the Inland Empire, the Eastern Sierras, the Imperial Valley, now coming back to some of our more populated areas of the state, but just spending anywhere from 3 to 5 days in a community to talk about just the challenges for sure in each of these regions, but also some of the attributes where we can just recognize what we have to work with. And at the end of all of this, what is always the common theme that I come home and really think about, with such passion, is our people. People who I think are everyday superheroes, particularly now, who wake up just trying to figure out how to make it through this really difficult time when affordability is really touching almost every household in California, and being able to just provide for their families, and to know that this is just going to be much tougher if we don't get some policy change both at the federal and state level. When I embarked on this campaign, I knew that it would be a crowded field. Many of you have supported my past service as controller, two-term as controller, and I want to thank you for that because, again, we ran a grassroots campaign during that first race for controller, and we were able to get into that top 2 finish. But why this is important is this. I served as vice chair of the California Democratic Party for 4 years between 2021 and 2025. And when I termed out as controller in January 2023, I had a lot of options in terms of where I could work. And I decided not to because I really wanted to do my part to continue to build California's strength as a democratic state. Also being able to look at how we can gain our foothold in terms of more seats in Congress and looking at how we organize our communities. And little did I know, really at that time, how important that would be in terms of how we're going to keep fighting back against this Trump administration. And so I'm just really proud of the work we've been able to do together in that regard. I did step down as vice chair of the party last spring. And just am so grateful that together we were able to stand up a year-round organizing program and just all of the things that we were able to do together with all of you to get Prop 50 over the finish line during the special election in November. And now it's about how do we deliver for Californians who really want to see their future here and want to see their future here for their children and how we make the state much more affordable for everyone. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of my priorities, and then I do want to just engage in our Q&A for the afternoon. You know, when Tim introduced me, he talked about my background. I am a daughter of immigrants. I'm a proud daughter of immigrants, and this is something we should never just back away from. I'm really quite tired of the rhetoric about how Democrats went overboard in terms of just our focus on our immigrant communities and on our LGBTQ plus communities during this last election. And from my perspective, these are things that add strength to California. The fact that we have this great diversity, the fact that we have just so many communities who can really look to California as a place where they can belong and call home. For me, that is never negotiable. We are a state that has particular power because of our great diversity. It is our strength. And then I also want to just say before we turn it over to questions, when we talk about affordability, I think you're going to hear all the candidates talk about affordability, but what are we going to do about it? And here's the reality. The reality is that we have a growing wealth gap in California. And the reality is that it's really our brown and Black communities that are continuing to fall much further behind. And the reality is also that it's not just about a wealth gap between high income earners and low income earners, it's the middle class as well. And the question is, are we going to ever be able to catch up and close that chasm in terms of the wealth gap? I think we can make some progress on it in terms of how we can look at the affordability issues of housing and healthcare, electricity prices. But at the end of the day, it's about how do we have just more jobs that can be stable jobs that our Californians can rely on to support their families. And hopefully one job can be enough. And so this is going to be a very, very challenging next period of years with respect to our state budget. We're not going to be able to cut our way out of it, nor are we going to be able to tax our way out of the budget deficit. But it's about how we're going to start investing in our people and in our communities. I've traveled the state extensively. We live in a great state. Every region of the state has attributes that can actually be recognized in terms of how we can continue to grow our economy and build that resilience against this Trump administration and future economic shocks that may hit us by growing our economy, creating more economic opportunity, and being sure that we are living up to our ambition as being a global economy as well. So with that, I'd like to just maybe turn it over to the Q&A. I know we'll probably get into more specifics, but I just am so grateful for this opportunity, particularly on a Sunday, to be with the PV Dems. And thank you all for your continued activism.
Why don't we turn it over to some questions? And Dempsey, we'll bring the mic to you.
Clearly, this room can see that I'm a big supporter of Betty. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Dempsey.
What I'd like to ask you is, who do you consider your most formidable opponent or opponents? And if you don't want to name any names in this crowded field, what sets you apart from who, in your mind, might be your most formidable opponent?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So let me just give you a sense of the dynamic from my perspective. And I probably won't name names because I think a lot of the candidates kind of fall into this category. You know, in all of our polling, we've asked voters, what are you looking for in the next governor? Are you looking for a fighter in chief, or are you looking for somebody who's a problem solver to try to tackle some of these issues of affordability? Just what are voters looking for? And right now, they're looking for a fighter in chief. Obviously, every day that we wake up, we're just facing, one more attack by this Trump administration, and I understand that. On the one hand, I think that is something that I hope people don't miss, and that is the price of admission to this race, you have to be a fighter against Trump. If our rights are being attacked, we are going to be striking back. If our funding is being threatened, we're going to strike right back. So that is just top of the order in terms of what we do as a governor and certainly as a gubernatorial candidate. For me, where I have been focused is just the healthcare cuts, but also all of the mass immigration enforcement by ICE. The fact that the federal government, Congress, and this president has decided that $170 billion of our money is going to go towards enhanced ICE enforcement, $45 billion to expand detention facilities. I mean, those are our taxpayer dollars, and I would like to see our Congress begin to push back a little bit more, because you can't tell me that that is a priority that is going to be at the expense of healthcare cuts and just so many other things that we're going to be going without. So I would say the most formidable thing that I'm challenged by is how do we get away from kind of the soundbite kind of reality TV, kind of theatrics, and really get down to the business of how we're going to govern and fix some of these issues. And that's what I'm about. Look, I have no aspirations to be president of the United States. I know the state well. I know how it operates. I don't need on-the-job training. We need to start delivering for Californians so that they can have the confidence about having a future here for them and their families.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Betty, this person's next.
Hi, Betty. Thank you for joining us today. I want to ask about what you would do to cut through the red tape that too often delays development, reduces job growth. I think we all agree that we need a rising tide to lift all boats here. That's how we're going to remain prosperous in a country that is in turmoil. So how would you pursue this?
Thank you. So everything from my perspective needs to be dealt with a sense of urgency. When you ask a family that is experiencing housing insecurity to wait until we can actually, get the approval process through our local agency, unacceptable. Everything is about doing what we know how to do with speed and certainly, I hope, with efficiency and good outcomes. So what I would do is this. One, and I'm just going to take it specifically now, with respect to housing. The legislature has been very, very prolific in terms of just setting the table with all of the menus about how we can build more housing supply. And there is going to be a housing bond that will be considered by the legislature this year, and we hope that we can get some financing on that. But the state has to do our part in terms of just streamlining our financing programs. And it's hard to believe that the state does not have even a permanent source of funding for affordable housing. It's this patchwork of different financing systems, that programs where we need to bring that all under one roof so that we know that as we're approving those allocations, that we know what we're getting, how much we're going to build, and how much is going to really help solve the problem. So the state needs to do our part. But with respect to the local approval process that is getting in the way, I think there are some incentives, and some of the delays actually don't have to do with permitting, but have to do with just some simple things like local governments that don't have capital to work with, local governments that don't have the wherewithal to deal with some of the infrastructure needs as they're building more housing. So the state, I think, can play a more vigorous role in terms of how we look at partnering on financing infrastructure, but also how do we incentivize business development that comes into where we're building housing. So what if you're building housing to the need, but if people are still commuting for 2 hours to a job, we're not really accomplishing anything. So I hope that we can just do better with respect to having a much broader, expansive view about the role of the state and our local governments to look at not just the vision for how we move forward, but how do we do it in a way where we can actually have some urgency around this. The biggest issue is how do you bring more housing supply and housing stock online much more quickly. I propose that we bring back some form of redevelopment so that we can look at where and how we build. When we look at blighted areas, existing structures, we can talk about housing rehabilitation, modernizing units. We can look at reuse and adaptive reuse. Just brings a lot more options in terms of how we can bring more supply online quickly.
I'm recognized someone. Okay.
Hi, thank you for being here today. I have a question about how to support economic growth and recognizing the need to address climate change.
Yes. Well, I think climate change, so as I talked about my priorities for affordability, so my priorities are really the affordability issues that I talked about, housing, healthcare, and electricity rates, but also education. But underlying all of that has to be the impacts of climate change. If we are not able to look at how we are dealing with the short-term aspects of how we need to either do risk mitigation or do some of the near-term work that we need to do, adaptation and the like. We're going to be dealing with climate change when it becomes a crisis, and our budget will not be able to accommodate that. It will crowd out everything that we want to fund that is so dear to us. And so climate change has to be a part of what we connect every policy issue to, whether it's how we build housing, whether it's looking at how we are hopefully accelerating the development of renewable energy so that we can look at more stable electricity, reliable electricity. And it's also with respect to healthcare, looking at our public health infrastructure to be sure that we are standing those up, particularly in communities that don't have access to basic health care and where we see areas with chronic health conditions. So these are ways that we just need to be smarter about how we spend our dollars so that we're looking at dealing with the short and midterm impacts, as well as looking at developing what I call a culture of preparedness so that when we have these crises, hopefully a lot of that will have been mitigated previously. And I'll also talk about climate change with respect to it being an economic engine as well. Even with all of the rollbacks of this Trump administration, I believe California, and particularly as we look at being the leader in terms of accelerating renewable energy development, but California can actually be the climate technology leader of the country and of the world. We have, for example, in water, and by the way, I'm not supportive of the Delta Conveyance project that the governor is considering. It doesn't create any new supply of water, but when we look at what's happening with water supply locally and regionally, our water agencies are looking at how to develop new supplies in responsible ways. And so when I look at that, I also look at, where is that water technology that could hopefully get us to a point of having, gray water systems in our homes, looking at how we could look at conservation where it doesn't become a burden, but something that is easy for all communities to be able to participate in.
So with the tragedy of Renee Good fresh on our minds, what can the California government do to ensure the safety of nonviolent protesters?
Thank you. This is where I do think we have to lean into the spirit of our sanctuary law, and that is our local law enforcement is not providing any assistance to any of our federal personnel. And we want our local law enforcement to really step up even more in terms of how do we build those systems in communities to keep each other safe, but also hopefully to be a defense and a shield against these kinds of things happening with federal agents coming in. One of the things, I was at a forum yesterday in South Los Angeles, and a question was asked by LA Times reporter Gustavo Arellano, who said, every time I turn on my phone and social media, all I see are just, videos about these ICE agents, whether they're shooting people or just coming into communities and harassing them. And I said to him, we must not forget here in California, I've also seen videos of where communities have pushed back right here in Los Angeles, really kind of telling the ICE agents, this is not your territory, this is our community. We have citizens who live here. So we have to get local law enforcement to be really right there with us. And more importantly, we need to strengthen our communities. I also asked at the forum yesterday, how many people in this room have taken a Know Your Rights training? We can't be bystanders to this. Every one of us should know what the Know Your Rights are, what the rights are of our immigrant communities. And that is how we're going to stand together and really continue to build strength in our communities, and really with the help of and the spirit of our sanctuary law here in California. And being sure we're giving the right supports, have the right supports in place for our immigrant communities, should they have any kind of interface with ICE that is about stripping away their constitutional rights and due process.
Thank you. So 3 things that I'd love to know your specific opinion on are the billionaires tax that's being floated around. Would you sign that into law? Yes or no? And healthcare is such an issue. Do you support California going to like a universal healthcare program, which I personally think is a tremendous economic stimulus for business to be relieved of that deductible expense? And what was my third one? For housing, do you support taxing investment corporations and LLCs that hold single-family homes for financial gain?
Let me thank you for those 3 questions. I'll start with the last one first. Yes, Anytime there is any move to take housing stock out of the market for just everyday Californians, I think there should be a price to pay for that, particularly if they're owned by corporate entities whose motivation for ownership is quite different from those who just want to be in safe and quality housing. With respect to single payer, I am a single payer advocate. I will say that this is going to be a tough journey, but given what's happening to healthcare, I think what I would like to see, and I've said this to many of the healthcare constituencies, I want to figure out how we can pilot what single payer could look like. If we can cabin off a population where we actually put a single payer, single financing system in place for a particular population so we can see how that works. Because I do think as I travel the state, people are very nervous. They like the concept, but they're nervous about what it looks like. And even as expensive as healthcare is, people don't want to even lose what they have in terms of just the healthcare that they have. So if we can pilot it to actually understand, deepen the understanding what that looks like, and even work out some of the challenges, I would really be an advocate for that. Look to see how do we put that in place. With respect to the billionaires tax, look, I was the first to say to SEIU, thank you for really just putting out the first salvo in terms of the fact that we do need to raise revenue in terms of how we're going to save our healthcare system. But here's the issue that I have with it. It can't be a one and done. If we're going to raise revenue, it needs to really be about how we shore up the system of healthcare, and it also needs to be something much more permanent. I get nervous about wealth taxes because of this, not because I'm afraid of them. And I'll be the first to take on billionaires, and I've done it during my time on the Board of Equalization as controller. But the problem with wealth taxes sometimes is that to get to that wealth, you have to pierce what's called the corporate veil, and there are constitutional issues associated with that. And so I don't want this proposal to be hung up in court, and then we're all of a sudden, just kind of in this holding pattern with respect to what we're going to do relative to funding healthcare. So I do think there are other ways of raising revenue, whether it's really going after the split roll with our property taxes, or looking at how we close what I call the water's edge loophole in terms of how the multinational corporations decide to elect to report their earnings here in California. But there are other ways to generate, billions of dollars in revenue. So I hope we can have a more robust conversation about that. I don't like the temporary nature of what's been proposed, but also we need to do our part to make the case for this tax increase, particularly if it's going to go to the voters. And just by way of note, the legislature actually has the wherewithal to pass the tax increases themselves. We have supermajorities in both houses, but they will probably put it to the voters. We also have the temporary tax increases, the Prop 55 tax increase on upper income earners that we have to renew before 2030. So you can just see the stacking effect in terms of what we're going to be asking voters to do. We've got to make our case clear, and we've got one shot at this, and I just want to be sure that what we're asking them to approve, they understand where the dollars are going to go.
Well, thank you very much, Controller Yee. We also have over 30 people joining us via Zoom for your presentation this afternoon. And there was one question from our participants by Zoom, and you already answered it. So in your answer with respect to housing. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And several of us, I guess, that are delegates will see you in person next month or this month.
Yes.
Next
Yeah,
month,
right.
I guess. I'm confused as to whether we're in 25, 26, January, February. It's one liability of being retired. I don't even know. Yes.
It will be next month in San Francisco. I look forward to seeing the delegates there. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. And for the delegates I'll see you next month, please come and join us on our Saturday breakfast that we do at every CADEM meeting. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.